The top story this week is the biggest story of the year so far. We're barely 3 weeks in. The free agent pool just got a lot bigger. One of the greatest wrestlers to ever live, still in the prime of his career, maybe the final few years of his prime, but he is still in his prime. Kazuchika Okada, the ace of New Japan, has informed New Japan Pro Wrestling that he will be leaving the promotion at the end of his contract on January 31st. That comes directly from a statement issued on New Japan's own website late Thursday. Say, we apologize to the fans for the abrupt nature of this announcement, but join them in wishing Okada the very best in his future. They also included this statement from Okada himself. I have nothing but gratitude for having been a part of New Japan Pro Wrestling since 2007 and for New Japan bringing me from a 19-year-old kid off the plane in Mexico to the rainmaker I am today. Thank you to the best of companies in New Japan, to the best of opponents that I've been able to face here, and to the best of fans that have cheered and booed over the years. I promise to make it rain in every match I have left, so keep watching. And Okada's wife, Suzuko Momori, was trending more than he was on Japanese Twitter after the news broke. She's a famous actress and singer in Japan. She's lent her voice to tons of anime features and video games. She's actually more famous than he is. And her fans are freaking out. They're all concerned because they think she might leave Japan with him and move to the United States. But the man is going out here with a win over Bryan Danielson in the Tokyo Dome, a win over Will Ospreay at their Battle in the Valley show, and is 1/3 of their never six-man tag team champions. See, that's how you play the game. That's how you go out on top. Now, even though his contract is up on the 31st, he will not actually be finishing up with them until next month. He had already been announced for 3 shows in February. He is still committed to those shows, although the lineups have changed. The biggest one being their New Beginning in Osaka show on February 11th, where Okada, Tanahashi, and Tomohiro Ishii were to have defended their never six-man titles. Instead, now they will defend those titles this Wednesday against Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, and Kosei Fujita, where I would expect them to drop them because no other outcome would make sense unless they add another defense next month. Instead, now on that February 11th show, the New Beginning, it will be Okada in one final singles match taking on Hiroshi Tanahashi, his greatest rival, or one of them. I guess you could also argue that Kenny Omega maybe is his greatest rival. I think of Okada, I think of Tanahashi. It's like I think of Rock, I think of Austin. I think of Brett, I think of Shawn. There are just certain people that go together like peanut butter and jelly. So, to me, it's his greatest rival. The former ace of New Japan against the current and soon-to-be former ace of New Japan. It was actually at the New Beginning show in 2012 that Okada beat Tanahashi to win his first IWGP title. And for nostalgia, it's great that we're going to get to see one last match between them. I only wish it was the Tanahashi of old, with better knees. Yeah, I don't want to say the man is washed, because he just had an excellent match with Zack Sabre Jr. at Wrestle Kingdom. It's hard to say somebody is washed when they're still going out there and having great matches like that. He can still go, but he's nowhere close to the Tanahashi of old. Father Time is undefeated. Okada against Tanahashi is the feud that really ignited New Japan's popularity in the 2010s. That Osaka show next month is shaping up to be a big one, by the way. Not only do we get the final Okada-Tanahashi match, Bryan Danielson is wrestling Zack Sabre Jr., and Will Ospreay is wrestling his final match as part of United Empire against Bullet Club. That's going to be the first steel cage match in New Japan in 20 years. I'd fly over for the show myself if I could. That sounds like a hell of a lineup. But his final shows will be February 23rd and 24th, and then he is officially done. Okada, my God, you look at his resume, you look at his body of work. 7 times IWGP champion between the 2 versions of the title. Second only to Tanahashi's 8 reigns as champion, but he spent over 2,000 days as champion, which is far more than Tanahashi. He has around 1,400 days. To say this is shocking would be an understatement. I knew his contract was coming due. We read about it. We knew about it. That alone was not news. He talked about possibly becoming a free agent. Sports Illustrated previously had said he was considering a jump to either WWE or AEW. And then last week, he filed a trademark for the Rainmaker name. So the signs were there, but I still did not think it was something that would actually happen. Especially after the reports about him wanting Takami Obari gone and Bushiroad making Tanahashi the new president of New Japan. It sounded like a move done in part to placate Okada, right? Their top star, keep him happy. I mean, I cannot overstate what a huge loss this is for New Japan. There has never been a bigger star in Japanese pro wrestling that has left to go somewhere else outside the country while still at the top of his game. He's 36 years old. This would be the equivalent of Roman Reigns or John Cena leaving WWE for another promotion, just in terms of star power and how important they are to their home promotion. And honestly, if anything, it's bigger. It's bigger than Roman Reigns or John Cena leaving WWE, because if Roman Reigns were to leave WWE right now, okay, let's talk about the Tribal Chief run. If Roman Reigns left WWE right now to go somewhere else, this company is stockpiled with so much talent and so many stars, so many over baby faces on top, more so than heels. And Roman's a heel, but they have so many stars, they're strong enough that they could do fine without him. Losing Okada is going to affect New Japan a lot more because they don't have that obvious person right now to step up and fill that void. And yet, you can look at it another way. Okada has done all that there is to possibly do in New Japan. He's achieved every goal, every possible goal, every title. He's headlined the Tokyo Dome countless times. And he did so working a very tough style, a very physically demanding, physically taxing style. So I can understand the ambition, if that's what it is. At 36 years old, when he's still got a lot of gas left in the tank, to leave and challenge himself somewhere else. It could be that he wants to challenge himself. It could be that he knows he can make a hell of a lot more money working for an American company right now, because the yen is in decline in Japan. I'm sure the value of the yen right now compared to the dollar is also factoring into his decision to leave. And probably the same for Julia, who may be leaving Stardom for WWE in the next few months. That's something New Japan has no control over. Although they have other problems of their own making when it comes to their booking and how slow they've been to create new stars, Okada is leaving. Ospreay is leaving. Tama Tonga said that this is going to be his last month in New Japan. He just dropped his never openweight title to Evil yesterday. And he spent, 14 years, I think, in New Japan? And he's leaving. And there could be others that follow. So he's got reasons to want to leave, but it just doesn't feel right. It's like Tom Brady spending his entire career, almost 20 years, with the Patriots and winning 6 Super Bowls there, and then leaving for Tampa Bay. You know, he was their franchise guy, and that's what Okada was to New Japan. They just lost their franchise. They just lost their ace. Not only did they lose their ace, they lost their best gaijin too, in Will Ospreay. Both at the same time. You know, it's like, what's worse than getting kicked in the dick? Getting kicked in the dick twice. That's what just happened to New Japan. The closest thing I could compare it to is New Japan losing Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles at the same time in 2016. They both gave their notice to New Japan the morning of Wrestle Kingdom. And then they went out that night and they had an all-time classic. Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated, in what may be the last wrestling story Sports Illustrated ever runs, said multiple New Japan sources all relayed the same message, that this was not unexpected, nor did it catch anyone by surprise. I'm not sure I believe that, especially given they admitted in their statement and apologized to the fans for how abrupt these changes were, that they had to redo those match cards. The reason I say it may be the final time, by the way, that Sports Illustrated covers wrestling is because it may be the last time they cover anything. The company that owns the license to run their editorial operations just missed one of their licensing payments and had their license terminated. And so in turn, on Friday, they laid off the entire editorial staff. It's hard to run a magazine or run a website without an editorial staff. This comes one day after the music website Pitchfork got folded into GQ, and employees there were told that they were being laid off. It's a sign of the times, I guess. But how do you destroy a once great brand like Sports Illustrated? I mean, to see what it used to be and how people revered it and who was on the cover was such a big deal. right? Even Hulk Hogan back in the day, I think he was the first wrestler ever on Sports Illustrated. What a big deal that was. And you see what it's been reduced to now. It's sad. But now the question turns to, where does Okada land next? Ultimo Dragon, who was a mentor to him, posted a photo of him and Okada together on Instagram and said this: Okada came yesterday to meet me to let me know that he is leaving New Japan. Every time he has had an important event in his life, he always lets me know. Although he hasn't decided yet, I'm sure he will continue to be a superstar wherever he goes, but not only that, I know he will never change and will continue to be the great man that he is. So Okada has not yet made his choice. I know Meltzer has said something similar, that he has not decided yet what he wants to do, where he is going to go next. Tony Khan has not said anything directly, but he was tweeting on Thursday like a little kid who just got a date with the prom queen, tweeting that it's going to be an amazing 2024 for AEW, and then later that same day after the Okada news broke, he replied to his own tweet with a Marlo Stanfield gif from The Wire. My name is my name. Whatever the hell that's supposed to mean as far as Tony Khan. I mean, it's Tony Khan, so who the hell knows what's going through his head. It sounds like someone's pretty confident that he's signing not one, but two of the best wrestlers in the entire world. Maybe the two best wrestlers in the entire world today. He's already got one. He's already got Will Ospreay. And he thinks he may have Okada. And I think that is his likely landing spot. Remember, when Okada appeared on Dynamite back in October for that tag match where they credited him with breaking Bryan Danielson's orbital, even though he really didn't, there was a report at that time, I don't remember what website it was, but there was a report that that visit had more to do with him wanting to get a feel for how things were run. Even though he had worked Forbidden Door, it's not like he had not done anything before with AEW. He wanted to go and get a feel for how things are run, at TV. And even then, he probably had it in his head, because he knew, he would have known back then, even before it was reported that he was going to be a free agent, he might want to possibly consider leaving. So he wanted to get a feel for things. He wanted to see how things were run, maybe talk to a few people there. Justin Barrasso says Okada struck up a friendship with Bryan Danielson, and Danielson has gained his trust. This is another area where Danielson can be very valuable to Tony Khan. The pros of going to AEW are that he would not have to uproot his family. He could continue living in Japan. Frankly, I don't think Okada needs to be on television on a weekly basis. I'm not saying give him a Roman Reigns schedule, but there's no need to throw him out there every week on TV and kill his aura, which I think is what would end up happening. Whether that's in AEW or WWE or TNA or anywhere else. Now, TNA, you may laugh at that. TNA may feel like a long shot, but he just worked his first TNA match the other week since 2011. And Anthem is throwing around some money right now in a way that they have not done before for talent. I don't think he's going to TNA. All I'm saying is you can never say never 100%. I never thought Okada was going to be a free agent and actually leave New Japan, but here we are, right? Never say never. But as far as AEW and the pros of AEW, you also have the working relationship between them and New Japan, which would allow him, if he wants, I don't get the sense there's any bad blood or acrimony there, if he wants to go back and work big shows for New Japan or work the Tokyo Dome once a year, with AEW, he would likely be able to do so. I do wonder how New Japan is feeling right now about AEW potentially signing away two of their biggest stars. But, at the end of the day, it's their choice to leave. It's not like Tony Khan is contract tampering or he's going behind their backs to lure them away. Look, Tony Khan would be a fool not to make a play for Okada or Will Ospreay if they become available. Because you know full well Triple H and Nick Khan would. But it's their choice. So I don't think it's going to harm the relationship, but they can't be feeling too good about things right now, the way things have played out. So that's another plus at AEW's favor. Triple H and Shawn Michaels are said to have significant interest in bringing Okada in. No shit. Water is wet and the sky is blue. Who wouldn't have significant interest in bringing in one of the biggest stars in the entire world who's about to become a free agent? So they're said to have significant... Now, I don't know what that means as far as Shawn Michaels. This is from Sports Illustrated. They're making it sound like Shawn Michaels is part of the creative brain trust in WWE. He is in NXT. I mean, are we talking about he wants to bring Okada into NXT? I mean, that might be what they're inferring there. I don't know. But Barrasso says Okada has always wanted to work a WrestleMania. And Triple H is aware of this and is said to have AJ Styles and Finn Balor lined up as possible opponents if he were to come in time for this year's WrestleMania. You know, Kenny Omega once said the only reason he would want to go to WWE would be to wrestle AJ Styles at WrestleMania. And he still re-signed with AEW. So that alone does not mean much. But the timing could be enticing with WrestleMania right around the corner, right? How does that play into his thought process? And AJ Styles would be the perfect opponent for him, although I'm not getting my hopes up like I did for his match with Nakamura in New Orleans. I learned my lesson after that. I'm keeping my expectations low, if it actually happens. But imagine Okada against AJ Styles. Imagine Okada against Roman Reigns. Okada and Seth Rollins or Gunther. There are plenty of worthy opponents for him to work with in WWE. And the thing to remember, and this is very important, is that this is a different WWE than even a year ago. Vince McMahon is out of the picture. Not completely. Not completely. He's still sniffing around. It's not like he's completely divorced from the company, but at least the creative process. Endeavor has gotten him out of the picture. Triple H is running the show now. How Triple H would book Okada is going to be very different than how Vince McMahon would have booked Okada. The funny thing is, if you would have told me that one day Okada would lose his title and walk around for months with emotional support balloons, I would have said, that's a Vince McMahon idea. How stupid is that? He actually did that, though, in New Japan. We got broken Okada. So he's not above doing goofy stuff. But the way that Triple H is going to book this guy, very different than the way Vince would have booked him. Times are changing. Okada is not going to go to WWE or AEW to wear a Green Hornet costume like Russo had him doing in TNA. And it's a message to other big names who might be thinking about coming over at some point when their contract comes due, that there is an opportunity there for them to come to the US, do well, and make millions of dollars. Millions of American dollars. And save their bodies. It's what Nakamura did. And there's a reason why he keeps re-signing with WWE. What do you think? He came to the company in 2016 and signed an 8-year fucking contract? He's probably re-signed two different times at least, maybe 3, since then. If he didn't like it so much, he could have gone back to Japan. Or he could have gone to AEW. He chose not to. He chose to stay. He obviously enjoys it. Maybe his family enjoys it. He's obviously making good money. He's not wrestling the same kind of matches he was in New Japan, which as a fan, I think is disappointing. But I can understand it. Again, it's a hard style over there. These guys get to a certain age. I mean, it's painful to look at. You look at Muda or some of these guys, the way they move around, their knees, my God. I could see Okada looking at that going, I don't want that to be me. That's what got Brock Lesnar to leave WWE in 2004. He tells the story in his book. He was sitting in the locker room one day looking around at guys and they're all hurt and they're popping pills. He's like, I don't want that to be me. I got to get the fuck out of here. So I get it. But there's a reason why Nakamura is still with WWE after all this time and has not yet gone back to New Japan. Where do I think Okada is going? I think he's going to AEW. Where would I like to see him go? You know, I would be lying if I said I'm not curious to see how Triple H would utilize him in WWE. I kind of want to see him go to WWE. And, you know, get that push with the big machine behind him and work with the top names in the company. Not that he doesn't have people to work with on the other side. He's got plenty of people to work with on the other side. A lot of those names he's already worked with. He's worked with Kenny Omega. Would I love to see Okada Omega again? Absolutely. But we've seen it already, right? We've seen it 3 or 4 times. And you've got Bryan Danielson. They had a series of great matches. More so the Wrestle Kingdom match, I thought, blew the other one out of the water. But there's also people on that roster he hasn't worked with yet. There's more people like that, though, on the WWE roster that intrigue me. I also think of Jay White, though. Jay White is, let me just make this very clear. Jay White is not in a bad position in AEW. And I know he's now 1/3 of the Ring of Honor 6-man who gives a shit about the Ring of Honor 6-man title? I mean, they have a belt on him, but it doesn't matter because those belts don't mean much. But he's still in a good position. He's not in a bad position in AEW, where there are people who are not even being featured on television. Okay, so he at least has that over those people. But I'd be lying if I said he doesn't feel like just another guy on the roster. Had things worked out differently time-wise, I think he would have done well under Triple H. He's the kind of talent, like Triple H did with Adam Cole in NXT, who I think he would appreciate and he would build around as one of his core talents. His signing with AEW came at a time where Vince McMahon had wormed his way back into things, and the company had a hiring freeze, supposedly, on new talent there for a period of time. Had things played out a few months later, he may have ended up going the other way. So Okada in WWE intrigues me. There's no guarantee of success. Absolutely no guarantee that they are going to use him exactly the way that fans want to see him being used. But I think there's a better chance of that now than there would have been 12 months ago. And I'd like to see it. So I think he goes to AEW. But I'll tell you what, though, if he does end up in WWE, I hope they pay New Japan for the rights to his music and they don't put it in the hands of Def Rebel or whoever is doing their music these days. I just can't imagine him coming out to any other theme. That's probably another check mark in the AEW column. He'd get to keep his music. I mean, Tony Khan, he brought Christian Cage in. He got the rights to his TNA theme. One thing about Tony Khan, he's on point when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I have no idea how TNA never got sued for that song to begin with, because it's a straight ripoff of My Last Breath by Evanescence. Maybe it's the ECW thing where they were so small nobody cared. There's no way you listen to those two songs back to back and tell me that one didn't influence the other. Once you get past the question of where will Okada land next, the question becomes who steps up now for New Japan. Tanahashi gave an interview to the Tokyo Sports Press and had this great quote where he said, "I think things will get interesting from now on. We have an abundance of talent right now, and there are a lot of young fighters in the dojo. When the rain stops, there will be a rainbow." What a great line. Emily Dickinson, William Shakespeare, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. What a poet. As depressing as it must be to be a New Japan fan hearing this news, it does present a huge opportunity for one or more people to step up now. Tanahashi can still go, but he's not the performer he used to be. I mean, obviously he's not the answer long term. But just looking at the way things are now, he's not the performer he used to be. Naito just won the IWGP title at the Tokyo Dome. He's also 41 years old with a history of injuries. I think it's time to move Shingo Takagi back up. He held that IWGP title during the pandemic. He's like Drew McIntyre. He never got to have a proper run in front of a live audience. But Shingo is fantastic in every match I've seen him in. The only mark against him would be that he's on the wrong side of 40, like Naito is. But he seems to be faring better physically than Naito. He's not a long-term answer, though. He's not someone that they're going to build around. But I do think it is time to move him back up. Zack Sabre Jr. is another name. Him losing the TB title to Tanahashi already seemed to be setting him up for something bigger. So they have a few names they could turn to as a stopgap until they're ready to elevate one or two of their young guns into a top spot. What I have seen of Yota Tsuji, he's the one who probably is the most ready of the bunch. You hear the name Shota Umino, they have Yuya Uemura. They're creating new stars now, they are, but they didn't do it fast enough, and so now they're playing catch-up. And they're playing catch-up at the worst time because it just so happens they're about to lose two of their biggest stars. Kaito Kiyomiya, he's still signed to Pro Wrestling Noah, but he's worked several matches for New Japan over the past year. I could see him ultimately signing there, and if he does, he could be someone they build around. There's also Nakajima. Katsuhiko Nakajima, the Triple Crown holder in All Japan. He's the one I just talked about it last week. He wrestled William Regal's kid, Charlie Dempsey, when WWE sent him over there at the beginning of the year. Now, he's a freelancer, so he's not bound to any one promotion, even though he probably spends most of his time with All Japan. He's not an All Japan contracted talent. So if New Japan could sign someone like that, while they continue building the young talent that they have, that could help fill the void. So it's not doomsday for New Japan, but it's definitely a body blow that they're going to have to absorb and hope they come out better on the other side of it.